Hey everybody, it's Coffee with Mick. Frank and honest discussion about whatever I want to talk about in the moment. Yesterday I talked about Lobo's cancellation special and how the concept of the comic book antihero has evolved and devolved over time. And I feel like that is translated to television as well, such as in the form of Rick and Morty with Rick Sanchez. Rick Sanchez and Lobo, their dialogue and actions can often be like synonymous, only Rick, the difference being is like where Lobo will like not try to justify what he does, Rick will justify every action that he does because nothing matters. Pure nihilism, you know? However, even that show does subvert it by showing us that Rick Sanchez is the way he is because of tragedy, because of a tragic backstory. There is depth to Rick, making him the opposite of like most of the citadel of Ricks, who, unlike what Beth thought of her Rick, well, our Rick, C-137, actually abandoned their family. Like, Rick Prime is the basic concept of the sociopathic, like, anti-hero in fiction who blows up a bunch of shit. He's really funny, and but we're seeing it from the outside, from the perspective of, like, you know, morally good characters, if you think about it. If that makes sense. Yeah. C-137 Rick is the premise with, like, heart. Rick Prime is the premise at base value. It's same with most of the other Ricks of the Citadel of Ricks. Yeah. Antiheros, Rick Sanchez. Yeah. 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 This is all improvised. I'm trying to think of my next point as I'm talking. Antiheros. Yeah, it's like basic, like Rick Prime. Basically, imagine like anytime Lobo's the antagonist, that's kind of like this. If we were reading a Rick Prime story where Rick Prime was like the protagonist, we'd laugh at him more. He'd probably be like some sort of fun, wacky anti-hero character. But like as like we're watching it from Rick's point of view, he's the villain. Like, it also brings up the subject of like there's only a few steps away from an anti-hero turning into a villain or a villain turning into an anti-hero. It goes both ways. Like Harley Quinn, Black Adam, Poison Ivy, they started out as mostly villains, but they ended up becoming morally nuanced over time and ended up gaining more heroic traits. Flop side of that, Punisher, Amanda Waller, and weird example, but Geoforce. Originally heroic characters, well, Amanda Waller more of an anti-villain, who were more morally nuanced, but at some point they ended up crossing the line and becoming more villainous. That's just the nature of change, you know? Heroes become villains, villains become heroes. And, you know, simple characters like Rick Prime and Lobo, they stay the same forever. They don't change. They don't give a shit. And while it's fine in their own stories, when they're in other stories where they're not the protagonist, it's like they come off as like nothing but villains, nothing but douchebags that we have to deal with. Yeah. This has just been like a story analysis of anti-heroes in general. Yeah. Let me try to think of another example. You know, to top this off, just go over the 5-minute mark. Anti-heroes. Anti-heroes, baby. Then you got like the worst example where like Beast became a full-on supervillain. Yeah, where he was a full-on hero who they just kept corrupting over the years. Actually, wait, no. I should have used that as the third example. Yeah. Beast was a perfectly fine, morally upstanding superhero Then they just kept making him more morally gray, and then in the Krakoan era, he's blowing up a submarine. It was weird. Yeah. Yeah. Antiheroes in general, from Rick Prime to Lobo, from Rick Sanchez to, Black Adam. Some of them stay the same forever, some of them change. It's all just a matter of who's writing and what we want at the time. Hope you all have a thought on that, and I hope you have a morning.